Hello and welcome to Official Nintendo Magazine's tour of the Banana Cup from Mario Kart 8. This is the second retro cup in the game, where they've taken lots of old tracks and brought them kind of kicking and screaming into glorious HD. First up is Dry Desert, which is actually quite sort of similar to the original in the GameCube version.
Yeah, it's probably the least sort of fundamental remake. I mean, it looks lovely, all the sand, and, you know, that kind of, that Egyptian atmosphere that they always had, that's really, you know, still intact. The thing that's changed about it, I think, is, well, firstly, there's some water in it, which is kind of strange for Dry Desert. They've also made that giant quicksand trap that they always had. I believe in Double Dash it used to have a big piranha plant in the middle, sort of a sarlacc pit style, whereas now it's just like pure sand trap, and it's slightly easier to deal with. It's not quite as grippy as it used to be, but it's fundamentally the same track, just jazzed up.
Next up is the only SNES track we've played so far, which is Donut Plains 3. It's kind of taken the sort of dirt track design of the original and brought it into kind of shimmering HD dirt.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's kind of covered in puddles, and like it's got this sense of a sort of very well-worn old thing, quite, you know, appropriately for a Super Mario Kart track. Yeah, the kind of major difference is now they've introduced the water sections, so where you would have fallen off the old rickety bridges that covered Donut Plains, you now sort of fall into water areas briefly, which slows you down, but it looks quite nice.
It does. It feels quite flat, though, compared to the other courses. It's here that I think you really feel that kind of...
that retro feeling in it. Yeah, I think they had to keep that for at least one or two of them to really kind of keep people invested in that old school Mario Kart thing. I think you'll get a lot of skill play on a track like this, whereas other ones are just purely, whoa, stuff going on.
Yeah. Next up is N64's Royal Raceway, which is the kind of trip around Peach's grounds. And in this case, what's changed, Joe?
They've pulled a similar trick to what they've done with Toad's Turnpike in the Shell Cup, which is essentially they've taken quite a blank track. In the old game, it was just sort of black road, green fields, and a big castle. In this one, you know, it's just fuller and busier and happier, but now you've got this sense of... the central thing in the N64 game was this huge jump, which didn't actually add much to how you were playing, because it just boosted you to the next piece of the track. Now that jump is a big gliding section past hot air balloons that you can crash into.
Those hot air balloons are a pain.
They really are. They really float quite quickly for hot air balloons.
Like, if I was a Toad in a hot air balloon, I would fly it kind of higher, because if anything, I just wouldn't want a cart colliding into my balloon.
You wouldn't want something with a combustion engine
hot air
flying
balloons
into
are kind of fragile to begin with. I mean, those Toads are basically begging for
death.
But yeah, basically. And finally, in the Banana Cup, and it's a rather apt course, is DK Jungle from the 3DS version. And in this course here, you're really reminded, like, the magic kind of that they did in Mario Kart 7, with retro coming in and adding a bit more kind of character to the tracks.
Yeah.
And that this is very clearly based on Donkey Kong Country Returns. You got the tiki drums, you got Donkey Kong's little hut, and it feels like it could be a new course in a way, like it's quite dynamic. What do you make of it?
I think it's kind of interesting because it's from the most recent game before this. It's one of the few that don't feel quite as updated as the others, but what it does differently is quite interesting. When you've played so much of Mario Kart 7 recently, you really notice the differences. So, for instance, there's a bit inside of a like one of those golden temple, the secret exits in Donkey Kong levels, and in the original, you just sort of sped round this U-turn with a big banana statue, and it was, it was nice, but it was sort of functional. Whereas in this one, it's an anti-grav section where you're sort of spinning around the edge and like turning up onto the wall, and it gives it that sort of extra pizzazz that it didn't have before. So it's those little differences that really make the difference here.
It's also got that great bit where you do the gliding and all the statues are kind of breathing horrible fires at you.
just angry at you for being there.
Actually, with that and the old Toad balloons in Royal Raceway, this cup is a bit of a nightmare for gliders. So that's our rundown of the Banana Cup. If you'd like to see more about Mario Kart 8 and see our tours of the Mushroom Cup, Flower Cup or Shell Cup, please click on the other videos in our YouTube channel.
Thank you.